Joining me now is Steve Cope, President and CEO of Silver Viper Minerals. Good to see you, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's a pleasure to be on.
Now, many investors and viewers will know the Silver Viper story. Some may not. So if you could just refresh our viewers as to what the basic narrative is and the La Virginia project in Mexico, along with your ultimate plans to do open pit mining and eventually underground mining.
Yeah, Silver Viper Minerals, like you say, has the La Virginia project focused in eastern Sonora. It's been our flagship project since 2018. We made a new discovery on the project called El Ruby, and that's been where the focus of our drilling and exploration has been. Been a really exciting project. You mentioned open pit heap leach mining, and we were really excited around that maiden resource, producing a resource that was double the average grade of the other operations in the state, or the average cutoff grade or average grade for the other projects in the state. So again, it's a project that really stands out amongst our peer companies and the other mines in the area for open pit heap leach mining, ultimately moving to underground mining on our high grade breccia structure at El Ruby.
Now, you said the focus this year has been on 5 areas. You mentioned El Ruby being a real focus. So can you give us an update on what kind of work you've been doing so far this year?
Yeah, we did a large geophysics program, really trying to identify deeper targets underneath what we've already found at El Ruby, and then also in the surrounding area, moving all the way over to the El Molino and Paradonis areas. It actually was quite fascinating and uncovered a lot of previously unknown targets that we didn't see outcrop on surface, but there were large resistivity anomalies moving all the way to the east, like I said, all the way over to Paradonis and El Molino, and then those targets as well lit up really nicely, and actually looking even like they could be larger than El Ruby itself. So that was really successful. On the back end of that, we started doing a lot of kind of ground truthing what we were seeing in that geophysics, to see if we could find outcrops, see if there was anomalous gold and silver in those areas, and largely that's been successful. We've also moved further to the south and been looking heavily at Macho Libre, El Oriental, Las Cantiles. And a lot of these areas have produced some brand new targets, never tested, never drilled before, showing kind of swarms of these breccia structures coming together, again, with some nice high grade surface sampling. So all these are areas that we want to, potentially make new discoveries on, similar to the way we did at El Ruby. And that's going to be the plan moving forward. Is going to be to start expanding El Ruby. We're going to start with Macho Libre and drilling that, and then ultimately, like you say, move into a new resource update.
And that leads to my next question, Steve. What is the timeline for drilling, and can we expect a mineral resource update sometime next year?
Yes, absolutely. We're targeting drilling resuming here in the next month to 2 months. On the back end of that drill program, we will be producing a new resource update that hopefully will be out, in the first half of 2024.
Now, one of the things you've done fairly recently is renegotiate the Rubi-Esperanza option agreement through which you make lower cash payments. So freeing up that cash, what does that mean in terms of flexibility and being able to apply it to exploration?
Yeah, that was really important, especially in this market that we've been in the last couple of years, where it's been hard to raise capital, it's hard to come by cash. And a lot of investors were looking at that final payment, even though it was a very attractive agreement, heavily back end loaded. So we put the money into the ground and make these discoveries and not have these, upfront property payments. In this market, seeing that final larger payment was scaring investors. So, we went to work. We've, have to thank our partners in Mexico, because they've been great to deal with from the beginning, and understanding the situation that, we're in this industry. And so, like you say, being able to lower that cash component of that payment and moving the rest into shares is huge, because the cash that we are raising now will go into the ground. It will go towards drilling. It will go towards things that are going to add value to the company, which is what we want and what I'm sure what our shareholders want.
Steve, more broadly with silver itself, I know you comment fairly regularly on the market, and you said at one of our conferences a while ago that you couldn't believe how undervalued Silver Viper shares were. So we know that silver's been in kind of a range, low 20s to mid to high 20s for a couple of years now. What's your overall view of the silver market, and do you see any catalysts on the horizon that can get the price moving?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely bullish on silver, but frustrated like everyone else. I think silver right now is in a unique spot in its history. We know that silver in the bull runs, outperforms gold on the way up historically, and that's been just treating it as, you know, currency, monetary value, a hedge against the US dollar and all that. But now with this green movement and everything else going on, all of a sudden the industrial demand for silver has skyrocketed like you've never seen before in the history of the metal. And that value on top of, historically how silver goes up and down, I just think, put silver in this position where it's ready to skyrocket. And then you start looking at supply and demand. All of a sudden now we're using more silver than we can produce in a year. So there's a deficit and we're going into those stockpiles. The mining companies with inflation need higher costs of the metal, especially, I mean, primary silver deposits need a higher cost of the metal just to make a go of it. And it's just everything is pointing in that direction of silver absolutely exploding and going to much higher levels because we need it to. And now with governments, we need it for the green movement as far as what we need in infrastructure and electric cars and solar and all these other uses now that we have for the metal. I think we're sitting here at a point. I think in the near term, investors need to be looking at the U.S. government and the Fed. We saw in January a lot of money come back into space and excitement, and metals prices start to rise on the idea that the Fed was pausing rate hikes. They turned around shortly after that and started raising rates again, and then we got back into kind of a bear market, waiting and waiting. But as soon as I think investors see and have confidence that for the long term, rates are paused or start, seeing some rate cuts, I think that's going to be the big trigger that's going to, set both metals, both gold and silver, off and explode and go up to much, hitting all-time highs in both.
Well, we know this is not your first rodeo. And speaking of skyrocketing, we know that silver did that in 2011, roughly, falling just short of 50 an ounce. And then about a year later, you sold Orca Silver to Core Mining for about $350 million. So that was one journey. This is another with Silver Viper. Can you compare and contrast what was going on back then and with this current journey with Silver Viper?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of similarities for sure on that front. It's, you gotta, when you're selling these companies and you're timing the market right, you need all the stars to align. And like you said, we had a joint venture with Pan American on that project, and metals prices plummeted, and the stock price went from 350 a share down to under $1, and then 6 months later was back up, and we were selling the company. And it's just, that's the type of thing that can happen in this industry. And if you can time it, and that was in an environment where metals prices had fallen off. If we can, get to a point, we've got the resource, we've got a fantastic start to this project, and can certainly grow it, in ounces, where both projects were in Mexico, both in great jurisdictions. There's no reason we can't do that again or sell this company for more. It's just getting all those stars to align at the right point. I think you're at a point where the major mining companies need to get aggressive on M&A because their reserves and resources are depleting. And so, yes, I'm very happy with where Silver Viper's positioned right now, as far as, ounces and project and everything else that we're doing right. It's just been the share price. It's not at a price right now where I would want to sell the company, but that's the opportunity for investors. And we're not the only one. There's lots of companies that are undervalued, but where we are and with the history and the group that we've got, Silver Viper at these prices is a crazy bargain.
And just lastly, if you want to keep that theme going, if somebody got you in an elevator, how would you give the 30 to 45-second pitch to sum it up?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a project in a great jurisdiction with a team that's done it before. You've got already a starting resource on the project that's showing, economically that this project should outperform other mines in the area. Gold and silver prices are ready to skyrocket. I mean, you can check off every box you want, and to me, it looks like if you want to invest in a junior mining company, I don't think there's much of a better investment out there right now.
All right, great stuff. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it. Good to finally do this, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Okay, Steve Cope, President and CEO at Silver Viper Minerals.